This is a podcast from Rover. Better me!
Better me!
Better me!
Better me! It's better me! Hopefully. Dun 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 dun! Welcome along to another episode of Better Me, hopefully. One of the main reasons that we wanted to do this podcast is because we feel like there's a lot in the wellness space that is an absolute load of shit. And it's thrust upon us left, right, and centre. My Instagram, my TikTok feed is just constantly telling me I'm fat, honestly. I just get serviced all sorts of pills all the time. So we are finally doing the What the Hell Actually Works episode, where I'm going to be finding out from people that listen to the podcast what has actually worked for them. And I'm going to tell you about some of the stuff that I've been trying across the season that you should definitely stay away from or definitely give a go. If you don't like to fart lots, there's definitely something you need to know about, because no one needs to live that putrid life that I lived for a week and a half. Holy shit. Literally. To get things off to a nice, classy start, thanks to my BBFF, Andy Rowe, he introduced me to an ex-professional rugby player who now owns a wellness space called O Studio. So please welcome the one, the only, the brilliant Tim Bateman. Our guest for the Does It Actually Work podcast today is Tim Bateman. Tim owns the O Studios, which there's one in Takapuna, there's one in Christchurch, and there's about 11 more of them opening up around the country. And he's an absolute legend. Also, rugby royalty. You're our first rugby player that we've had on the podcast.
Yes.
I feel like I have nailed Kiwi podcast life now.
I don't know if I should be here for the does it actually work, or what actually works? Because I don't know if many things I do actually work, but we'll see.
Well, we'll see. But I think it's interesting because obviously you've come out of being like a high performance athlete and you've gone into making these great spaces for people to head along to, where there's like the infrared saunas, ice baths, the float, there's like the recovery sections as well. Are these things, like, what led you to want to get into this space post rugby? Like, were they things that you used when you were training to keep your body at high performance, or is it something you learned about after?
So it was actually quite an important part of my whole back end of my career, really. One for the rugby side of it too, initially, but it really all came from my wife. Actually, she has multiple sclerosis, so she was diagnosed when our girls were they must have been about 5 and 3.
Wow.
And so it was there was 3 or 4 years leading into that. There was lots of stuff happening, but so her background was sport as well, actually. So she played a lot of high level hockey and did a lot of cross country running and stuff. So her identity was actually tied up in being physically good at things as well. And she went from that to literally couldn't run 200 meters, lost her vision, lost use of one of her arms, lost control of her bladder. There was a whole raft of things that were going on, and it was she was progressing really quickly. And then she was diagnosed. We were in Wellington with the Hurricanes at the time, and the treatments that she went on here in New Zealand were really rough. It didn't help, and so we went to Singapore, and she spent maybe 6 months in Singapore. She was about 6 weeks in isolation in a hospital up there, and went through this thing called a stem cell transplant.
Wow. Okay, so that's something that you hear about, but I've never heard of someone actually getting one. That's incredible.
Yeah, it was intense.
Yeah.
It was real intense, actually. And I was basing myself in Japan with the girls and going back and forth to Singapore. And it's effectively where they take healthy stem cells out of your bone marrow, blast you with high-dose chemotherapy, kill your immune system effectively, and then re-enter your stem cells and grow a new immune system that hopefully doesn't have that same defect.
God, science is crazy.
I know
it's quite incredible.
It is. And I mean, that was rough, super rough time in our life, really. And I was 28. I must have been about 28 at the time, and she'd finished the transplant, and they recommended flotation therapy to both of us, because they could see that we were both just stressing out, battling. And so we started doing it in Singapore, and it was my first experience was it's still probably the best flight I've ever had. I was for anyone that doesn't know, you go into a pod or a cabin or a room, and everything, music plays under the water. That's it's high dense salt in the water, so you can float on top of the water. You can actually fall asleep on top of the water. And then you can turn the light off if you want. So I turned the light straight off. So and there's no light, no sound, no temperature regulation, no gravity, and you sort of just disappear for a little bit. And I had this like massive vivid dream of like being back at my family home, and I was walking around. It was almost like one of those sort of like ones that you feel like you're controlling the dream. And I'd never had that before. And I couldn't wait to get out and talk to Laura afterwards in reception, and she'd had like the opposite experience. She'd had an absolute shocker.
What happened to her? Did she just like get in there and panic? I can see how people would freak out in there.
Yeah, especially in the like those ones. Those ones are like smaller pods, like the ones we have a lot bigger and open. But no, she didn't panic. She got salt in her eyes like immediately, which is like just there's 10 minutes.
Yeah,
and she forgot which button to push to start the session. And you're naked, obviously, in your own room. And she's like, I don't want to push the wrong button and then come in. So she just like lay there with the lights on the whole time with her eyes burning. And there was like, what are we doing here? I like managed to convince her to like come back. And so we did a few more up there. And then we had to be back in Christchurch. So I retired from rugby then. And that was a hard call because I had chances to go to other franchises in New Zealand, but we needed to be in Christchurch, and they just signed Sonny Bill, so someone actually good.
Oh God!
I know. So I was like, they definitely didn't need me, and so I retired. We came back to Christchurch and opened just a float centre. We were just going to have a float at a house initially, and then it turned into actually there's something happening here. Opened the float business called Cloud9 Float Club, and we still run that. Actually, it's been 9 years now.
Wow!
And it's sort of just, I don't know. Like I worked full time in that for about 8 months before re-signing and playing again for another few years. But just seeing the different types of people coming in, like you always feel like you're the only one battling with something, you know? Yeah, you feel like you're the only one that's got stress or dealing with some sort of health concern or relationship problem or work problem. But actually, everyone's battling something. And that was very clear to us. So that was sort of the start of the whole thing really for us.
What was it? So I actually went along to try a float, and I'm going to play you some audio now of when I went and experienced this. And I didn't know what to expect going into it. I had friends that had sworn by them. You were obviously like a big advocate for them. And I thought to myself, I was like, okay, I'll go try it out. And this is what happened.
Okay. I'm just looking at the float for the first time. There's like pretend stars on the roof, and I can see all of the salt, and it only looks like half calf deep. I'm a little bit scared that I'm going to get claustrophobic or just my brain's going to go crazy, but we'll give it a go. Okay, wish me luck. Okay, I'm whispering because I've got earplugs in and I'm worried that I'll start yelling. I'm feeling quite nervous, if I'm honest. Okay, I'm going to put my foot in. Oh, that's the weirdest feeling. It doesn't feel like normal water. It feels like when you're putting the water in, but then it pushes back at you, like there's an energy pushing up. Okay, I have to put my phone down. I'm going to start the music. Oh, did I do that? I'm starting. See you after.
I couldn't believe, because my brain is so loud, I couldn't believe that I had actually fallen asleep inside this room, to the point that I woke up and was like, oh my God, have I been in here too long? What are the benefits of the float? Like, how is that doing the witchery that it was doing to me? Like, I was just feeling so relaxed and just completely dead asleep.
Long story short, you're trying to tap into that sort of parasympathetic nervous system. So like you've got the sort of stress response, and you've got that sort of rest and digest response, and it does take a wee while. Like for you having that experience first time, that's different to normal. Usually it takes people a few times. People are more like my wife, and that might take 3 or 4 times to actually relax into the environment. For most people, when you're floating in water, subconsciously you're not able to sort of sink right down. But ultimately what you're doing is when you've got no stimulation coming in, so there's no light, there's no sound, no temperature, no gravity, your body's like, actually there's no threat here. There's nothing actually going on, and so I can really sink down into this really deep form of relaxation. So it's like meditation, I reckon, on steroids, you know, and it does a few things. So that's one side of it. The other side is the salt. So the Epsom salt in the water, there's a lot of benefits around magnesium sulfate and what that's doing to the skin and helping relax the body. That's why a lot of people sleep well after floating.
Oh man, I slept so deeply that night.
Yeah.
It was like one of the deepest sleeps I've ever had.
Yeah.
I woke up, and because my 3-year-old, he always like comes into my bed at nighttime, I woke up and was like, whoa, when did you get here? Because I was that deep asleep.
Yeah.
It was wild.
Yeah, and that's, once again, it's really common. And it's a combination of like stress, like your body, like, you know, being in a state to be able to genuinely relax, and then the magnesium as well. But like, honestly, like, I do one a week, you know, at 2 o'clock on a Wednesday is like my time. And I'm up here on Wednesday, so I'm going to go tonight actually to Sakapuna. But it's like my favourite part of the whole thing, I think, is just like locking the door.
Yeah.
Like, the whole world can just go away for a little bit. I've sort of got in that rhythm now. Like a lot of people, our clients will use it for visualization, or they'll go in there and they're actually actively thinking in there. Some people have like tracks that they'll have the whole time, so like meditation tracks or music tracks playing the whole time. But really, it's really about just removing yourself from the busyness for a little bit.
Because I can't meditate. My brain is just too busy.
Yeah.
And so no matter how I try, I can't meditate. But for some reason, I managed to just completely switch my brain off. And I don't think I've ever switched my brain off like I did in that float. I came out of it and was like, wow, I thought I was going to spend the whole time freaking out, and I didn't. It was amazing.
We actually had Mike King come in, and if there's someone who's not going to switch their brain off,
it's him.
You know what I mean? He came in down in Christchurch a couple of months back, and so I sat down with him for an hour or so afterwards, and he just had all these ideas around what we want to do with float tanks, and like people with ADHD, like he'll record tracks and put them in there, and just how we can, because once again, it's just a tool and it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
And that's why with O Studio we have lots of different types of offerings, but it's probably my favourite out of all of them. And I think it all stems back to sort of why we got into it in the first place.
There are lots of different things out there at the moment that people are trying that you might see on social media and things like that. Do they actually work? Here are some of the things that a few people that I got to try some stuff went and tried, and also what you've tried and you rate.
Berberine is a fad that everybody jumped on because people were taking it for the wrong reasons. They thought it was like the herb version of Ozempic, but it's actually really good to level out your blood sugar level so your insulin doesn't spike. And I needed to take it because I was having bad blood sugar spikes, and it worked.
Does it have to be ones that work?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. I've done lots that haven't worked.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine, and you're not really fine. You just can't get into it because they would never understand.
Nothing that has? No.
So all the ones you've been serviced on Instagram have just been a load of crap?
Yeah.
Balance bands. The wristbands that they used to have back in the day, and they had the little metal bit in it. You used to like go into a store to try them on. They'd push you over and you'd be like, well, I'm so off balance, and you'd put the wristband on and they'd push you again and you wouldn't fall over. So I'm a balance bands believer.
Wow. And so you've been rocking a pair of these balance bands?
Nah.
Rosemary oil for your hair, and it makes your hair way thicker and healthier. No, I haven't washed my hair in a while.
So it works, but you just smell like a lamb rack.
Yeah.
We're back with Tim. And Tim, we've talked floats. I really want to get into infrared saunas with you because I am a daily, if I can, 20 minutes infrared sauna. I think they're incredible. There's something cathartic about like the full sweat that you get on, the sleep that you get, the research around how it can help prevent like Alzheimer's, and it's done wonders. Like, I used to have to go to physio every 2 weeks for my hip because I've had like been put back together slightly crooked after I had my second child. I'm going like once a month to physio now. It's been a game changer. But what was it about infrared saunas that made you want to create a space for people to come and experience that? And what are they actually doing? Like, how are they different to saunas?
The difference between infrared sauna and traditional sauna is that the infrared panels are sort of heating an object, whereas like a traditional sauna is heating the air. And so when you step into an infrared sauna, it doesn't feel as hot as a traditional sauna. Effectively, it's like they're emitting this infrared light, which is the same as the sun. Our bodies actually work on infrared heat as well. So we emit infrared heat. Fire emits infrared heat. And so it is a natural form of heat, but it's heating the object. That, like, the best way I can sort of explain is like if it's a really cold day and you're sitting inside and it's still pretty cold in the room, but you're sitting in the sun, like the sun's heating you and you're heating up, but the air around you is not really heating up.
Yes.
That's sort of what an infrared sauna is doing, and it sort of penetrates deeper than traditional heat. And so it's sort of going deeper into the muscle and into the sort of fibres, I guess. The only hard thing with infrared saunas really is there's not as much research done on it compared to like a traditional sauna. So there's sort of studies that are done on traditional saunas that have been done over like 20 years with like tens of thousands of people, and like they've looked at like all-cause mortality that's decreased by 40%. So like the chance of dying dropping by 40%. So effectively it's like if you sauna, this is all on traditional sauna, 1 to 3 times a week, your chance of any heart-related death or illness decreases by 27%.
Holy!
If you sauna 4+ times a week, it decreases by 54%, which is like madness.
Yeah.
It's madness. Like,
how is it doing that?
It's all around, so like there's lots of stuff that's going on, but effectively it's like vasodilation, so your body gets really effective at pumping blood through your veins and arteries.
Yeah.
And so that's a core part of it. So it's effectively like strengthening your heart. So there's heaps of research on traditional saunas, not so much on infrared. And so there's more coming, that's starting to come. Honestly, like there's going to be benefits. There are, especially if you're over 80 degrees, that's where the sort of benefits of all the traditional sauna work has been done.
80 degrees? Yeah. Oh my God, I feel proud of myself if I get to 62.
Yeah, well, you're right actually, because the infrared sauna recommendations are like in the high 50s.
Yeah, okay.
That's where they sort of say to stay, and you still get benefits there. But it's funny, like it's not really until you try it and do something that you sort of realise as well. Like I've got 2 daughters, so they're 17 and 15, my girls. And like for ages, I was trying to get them in the sauna. I was like, you got to like talking about all the health benefits. It's great for your heart, like it's like they're big into sport too. And I was talking about muscle recovery and just nothing. They were like, nah. And then one day they came home, both of them, within the space of like 2 days, and were like, I really want to try a sauna. And I was like, what's going on here? Like, this is great. Like,
let's
cracked
go.
it, Dad. Like, well done. And so I was like, yep, sweet, got in, and they were just right into it for like every day for a few weeks, and I was like, what has happened here? And it all came down to like skin stuff. It was all I'd seen like all the stuff around like how it's good for your skin, and I was like, shivers, it's a vanity thing. Well, I don't care. Actually, this is normal.
I was about to say, I was like, did they just see the pictures that girls post on Instagram from an infrared sauna where it's just like they see the pod and like the hot girl sitting inside the pod? Whereas I do not look like that, because I'll like get in and I'll see my reflection in the glass, and I'm like, oh my God, it looks like Mr. Burns is wearing a wig in here. This is wild. I just like look forward and read my book now. I'm like, don't look at me.
Oh man, it's so fun. Like, that's I guess at that age, that's the most important thing, isn't it?
It is.
Until this was a few weeks after that actually. They both once again came back. They must be watching the same TikTok videos or something, but it was like they really wanted to get bee pollen.
Oh,
have you heard about
bee pollen?
Bee pollen?
What is bee pollen? Yeah, I've heard of it, but what does it do?
They were like, we have to get bee pollen. I'm like, what do you mean? And they were like, it's actually really good for you. And I was like, okay, sweet, and got some bee pollen. So a few days after that, I Googled like teenage girls bee pollen, and it was all around growing breast size. I was like, oh my God.
Did it work?
I said, yeah.
Did it work? No, far out. 14-year-old Sharon would have loved to know if that worked. Oh my God.
Yeah, it just shows. I know this whole podcast, you talk a lot about like, what are the things that people are doing to support health. But man, yeah, TikTok, it'll get you.
Oh my gosh, the things I've seen on TikTok is crazy. That's why like we're doing this episode is like everyone sees all these different things, but what do they actually do, and do they actually work? Because a lot of the stuff, it doesn't. I love infrared saunas as well. Like I find, I don't know, there's something about like sweating out the day.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Like, yeah, I actually prefer the traditional sauna.
Yeah.
Personally.
No, that's cool.
I like that, like, I like the burn of it.
Yeah.
And what we normally see, actually, females do in general have preferred the infrared heat, and males have in general preferred the traditional heat. Like, obviously, we have a lot of guys that like the infrared, and a lot of females that love the traditional. But saunaing at night or in the later part of the day, how that helps with your sort of circadian rhythm, so you can drop into a deeper sleep quicker. And the opposite, actually, as well with the cold. Like, if you can be in the cold earlier in the day, then it sets up your circadian rhythm to be able to fall asleep. 5 years ago, there wasn't as much research done on cold and heat and how you can actually use those to support your health. much like probably 50 years ago, there wasn't much research on what actually physically training does for your health.
Yeah.
And so like, it's like absolute rock solid now, like heat and cold have genuine benefits for lots of different things. Yeah.
Because I was watching this video on the internet the other day of this person who was like really passionate about how ice baths are an absolute crock of shit. And they were so aggressive on it almost. Have a listen.
Medically, I'm never going to recommend to my patient ever in my life as a physician to go do a cold plunge. There's no evidence to say it really does anything valuable. It's expensive. It's time consuming. Most patients do not live in this world that they can afford to buy a tub. This is the difference between people who are excited about information and are researchers versus someone who's a clinician and actually sees patients and the hard time they're having in their everyday lives. And then I'm going to come in there and be like, oh, in my fancy suit, I'm going to tell you to get a cold plunge. And if you do it for 3 minutes and not 3 minutes, 13.4 seconds, you fail. It's not real. There's no evidence. It doesn't exist.
This guy's like so full on, but I feel like this is also the same space as like sometimes some GPs think any form of like naturopath is just, they're so angry about it because they just don't want like the science and the nature to go hand in hand. But we see like our top athletes all sitting in ice baths after a game of like rugby or whatever. So what do you think about what this guy's saying? Because you're an ice bath advocate.
Yeah, it's a funny one, eh? Like, the first thing I would say is like everyone's different. Like, and so like we always really recommend that you do get some personal advice on it. Like freezing cold water is not for everyone. You know, it's not like a panacea. You're going to get the same results for everyone at all times. You know what I mean? But I would completely disagree with parts of what he's talked about there. Like there is actually huge amounts of research that's been done on cold exposure and what it does. Just looking at the athlete side of it for a second, it's definitely evolved. Like early in my rugby career, we'd be in the ice bath after every training session effectively. And you definitely wouldn't be doing that now. Like you'd never want to get in the ice after lifting weights.
Yes. Okay.
Like it sort of stops that muscle adaptation. So it stops that height. But you actually want bleeding. You're actually better off getting in the sauna after you lift if you want to grow muscle.
Okay,
and
that's
so
a good tip.
It's around like your human growth hormone release. So you've really got to understand what you want with the sauna. Like if you want to grow muscle in a sauna, you shouldn't really be saunaing more than sort of once a week because your body becomes heat adapted. But if you sauna around once a week, you know, maybe once or twice a week maximum, post lifting a lifting session, your human growth hormone release goes up around 9 times.
Wow.
So and that's natural human growth hormone. You actually can't beat that without drugs.
Yeah.
Or while you're a teenager who has huge amounts of human growth hormone that's being, developed. That's why you grow. And so to grow muscle, heat can be used. Also, you've got these things called cold shock proteins that sit in your liver. And so when you hop in the cold, all those cold shock proteins come out into your bloodstream. So if you're purely wanting to grow muscle or be effective with the gym, you should ice bath first, lift weights, and then get in a sauna. So you're releasing all those cold shock proteins, you're lifting, which is stimulating the muscle, and then you're increasing that sort of muscle bleed, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's purely athlete side. If you're wanting to recover quickly for the next day, then you can use cold because you sort of decrease the inflammation. But once again, if you're trying to grow muscle, you don't really want to be going that far with it.
Yeah.
Just for everyday people, though, like being in the cold is really good for you. A guy called Wim Hof, you heard of Wim Hof?
Yes,
before?
yeah.
The Iceman, and I know he's got like, people love him or hate him, but the way he sort of talked about it, it resonates with me. Is like go to the cold or the cold will come to you. Is sort of the way he talks about it, and so like sort of around building resilience within your body. So I mean, this is maybe a little bit weird. I haven't been sick since 2019.
Wow.
And maybe that's a bad thing. I'm not too sure. I think maybe you should get sick every now and then. But a big part of it, I think, is this combination of cold and breath work.
Yeah.
Setting up your circadian rhythm, once again, being cold in the morning turns on this thing called like brown fat thermogenesis. It gets all your sort of this brown fat around your organs like working, which is a good thing to do early in the day. So there's definitely lots of good things, but once again, it's like understanding where you're at, what you need, and the protocols to use alongside it. Yeah.
Can you just do it in the shower, like cold shower?
Definitely. Yeah. Honestly, like just putting your hands in cold water is good for you.
Wow.
So you've got these things. I can't remember what they're called, but you've got them on your cheeks, your palms of your hands, and the soles of your feet.
Right.
And so it's like a thermostat, effectively. Like if we wanted to, say this room was being heated and the thermostat's up in the corner, and we wanted to cool it down to say 16 degrees. If we went and put like a heater right next to the thermostat, it's going to keep on cooling. You know, it's telling that the room's actually different to what it is. Your palms of your hands, the soles of your feet, and the bottom of your cheeks are like that. So you can sort of, if you put your hands in cold, it tells your body that you're cold and it starts heating itself up.
Oh.
Yeah, so it does the opposite. So if you're an athlete and you want to like cool yourself down quickly, you should put your hands, your bottoms of your feet, bottoms of your cheeks, and your feet in cold. You'll cool down effectively. If you actually put cold on your back or around your neck, your body will do the opposite. It won't cool itself down.
Wow. Okay.
But yeah, so definitely like cold showers are great. Like it's fantastic, and just like there's like the mental clarity. Anyone that's done a cold shower or been in a cold bath,
Yeah, just like resets your nervous system, eh?
it does. Like there's lots that's going on. You get a huge rush of dopamine that gets released, and that actually sits in there for a long time as well. So you'll have like you'll have like, I think it's like 6 times. 6 times the amount. Maybe I've got that number wrong, but you have this flood of dopamine that lasts for a long period of time. It's not like a short hit. It's
And to achieve that, so like Wim Hof, obviously, like there's like a breathing method. Is that right?
Yep.
And I always forget this when I try to do like a cold shower after a sauna or something. And I'm like, am I supposed to be breathing in my nose and out my nose, or am I supposed to be in my nose and out my mouth, or in my mouth in, mouth out? Like, how are you supposed to breathe through that? Because I recently tried an ice bath. I got into like almost shoulders, like probably like under my boobs, and I was like, and my friend was there just like cracking up. I think I lasted like a minute.
Yeah.
My other friend, one of my best
That's pretty
mates,
good.
she got in there for like 2.5 minutes. She was full under.
Yeah.
And I was in the sauna listening to her, and I was like, are you okay? Like, it sounded like she was giving birth, but she was like breathing through it.
Yeah.
But what's the right way to breathe in those scenarios?
Yeah, it's so when you hop in the first time, like, what do you think happens? It's like your body goes into this stress.
Shock.
It's like
Yeah.
a real shock stress response. It's like, get out. I need to get out of here. This is terrible. This is dangerous.
Yeah.
And so how do you tell your body through your breathing that you're actually safe and calm? So breathing through your nose.
Okay.
And as slow as possible.
Right.
So like what we always say to people is when you hop in, take a few big deep breaths in and out, like whatever you need to do, mouth, nose, just whatever.
Yeah.
And then when you're ready, just try and just close your mouth and just breathe in and out your nose. Because that once again, it's just telling your body that you're safe. So when you're unsafe, if you're being chased by a tiger on the plains or if you're feeling unsafe, usually we go to mouth breathing. And it's like shallow mouth breathing. And so if we deliberately do the opposite, it tells our body that we're actually safe and that we can relax. And then, hold on for a minute and your body goes numb and you're away.
What's like the stabbing feeling that you get? Like, because I just put my legs in and my calves felt like there was all these needles going into my calves. Like, what is that? Is that just it's finding like where your muscles are sore or?
Yeah, so like same sort of thing. When you get into cold, your body thinks there's a big threat going on. There's some massive stress response. So it tries to protect itself. And so the way that it does that is that all the blood from the extremities get flooded into your core and up into your brain. Ooh. So that are the most important things to protect. Like you can lose your fingers or your toes or your feet before you
lose your torso.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that pain is actually all the blood rushing away from that area is what you're feeling there. And so, so that's why your hands and feet will usually be colder than your
rest of your body. It's all running home to save the mainframe.
Exactly. And so that's really good though. Like you get all this sort of blood that's flushed into your core and up into your brain. And then when you hop back out, you've got this sort of oxygenated blood that goes back out into your extremities. And that's why you get that sort of tingling and that sort of euphoric sensation when you're finished. You've got all this oxygenated blood going through. And that's why you got that real clarity of thought too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Blood. Yeah.
This is like actually making me want to like go ice bath again.
Well, it's like once again, no one loves ice baths. I mean,
I hate those people on Instagram that are like, I love to ice bath, and they like get in. Whereas I love like watching my friend Laura. She ice baths at home, and she gets in, and she's like, and her kids just sitting there being like, "Mama, mama, mama," and she's like, oh, I'm hating this ice bath, but she's a little bit distracting me, kind of vibe. But
that's and one thing for us, we've honestly seen like thousands and thousands of people go through them, and some incredible stories, like genuinely incredible stories. You know, like people who've had dealing with massive stuff, and ice baths have become like the thing for them that gets them through. You know, like, and so. Yeah, we see it firsthand all the time, the impacts of it. But once again, it's not for everyone. And so, like, we always say, ease your way into it. You know, like, once again, just your hands, just your cheeks, just your feet. Maybe first time 20 seconds, maybe 40 seconds. And, like, ultimately, we know the benefits of it. Like, if you could get the benefits of an ice bath in a pill,
oh yeah,
everyone would have it.
Everyone.
Like, genuinely.
I
and
know.
so it's like, but the problem is you have to be uncomfortable to get the benefits.
Yeah.
Your body has to be like, go into that stressed state to actually release the hormones that it needs to release to get the benefits. So it's sort of, it's just tough. That's all it is.
Yeah, it's just getting through the mind first, which is like the key to life.
Yeah.
One of the biggest questions that we ask on the podcast, and especially on this episode where we're, trying out a bunch of different things. This might be a good time, actually. I won't say it in front of you, Tim, because it's a bit embarrassing, but for me to talk about some of the supplements that I've been trying on your behalf to see if they're bullshit or if you should buy them. Okay, here's the things I've been trying. I'm going to go and hide down a hallway because one of them's quite embarrassing. If you get service the ads for the Lemme, the Kourtney Kardashian metabolism pills, okay, I took them for 2 weeks and I made the mistake of taking them at work. That was a bad idea. Do not take them at work. Do I think they quickened my metabolism? Maybe. I don't know. Probably just placebo. But I'll tell you one thing they did do. I was farting so bad. It was the worst. Honestly, putrid. The worst farts I've ever done in my life. To the point that Bryce walked into our bedroom and he was like, I think someone's shat on the floor, and he thought that maybe our youngest had done a poo. That's how bad they smelled. I was like, no, it's just me. I'm gassy. They were the worst. Things that do work, though, that I have been trying out for you. One is the Moody. You may have seen these in your Instagram feed. They're the ones with the baby blue packaging. Moody pre- and probiotics. God, I can't talk properly. They're really nice flavour, so it's a nice drink in the morning. It's like a pink lemonade, and I've been having that, and I just notice I feel more chill. My gut health, I don't know how to explain my gut health feels better, but my gut health feels better. My mood is better. My energy's better, and I wake up in the morning and I don't feel as groggy. And I've tried a lot of probiotics, and I never stick to them. The Moody ones I will be sticking to. So shout out to Mel Dooley, who you'll also hear on this podcast talking about them. Another thing I have been trying is Emma Lewisham has released this serum that is like a Botox alternative. And so I put it on one side. You know that crease you get from like your nose down to the corner of your mouth? I've been doing it on one side, but not the other. And there is a noticeable difference in the line on the side that I have been using it. I've also been using it in my neck creases, and you know that you get from looking down at your phone all the time, and have noticed a huge improvement. So I think that is an amazing product. Another thing, which I've spoken about before, the Me Today, oh my God, I can't breathe. The Me Today ashwagandha is just incredible. It's an adaptogen, so if you need energy, it gives you energy. You need to be chill, makes you feel chill. You can take it for sleep, you can take it during the day. I absolutely loved that product. Better Me, hopefully, sponsored by Specsavers. Guess who's back again? It's Ryan O'Connor, the optometrist from Specsavers, and he's here to answer all of my glasses optical questions. And I need to know, Ryan, what does an OCT 3D eye scan do? And is it going to help my husband be better at finding things around the house? Because I swear he cannot find anything.
Yeah, and as an optometrist and a bit of a geek, this is my favourite piece of equipment that we have in our practices. It stands for optical coherent tomography. Big words. It just kind of maps your eyeballs with light, and it allows us to pick out all the diseases. So making sure that you're lovely and healthy, there's no glaucoma, there's no macular degeneration, There's no damage from diabetes. We can see that. Unfortunately, you, the patient, don't necessarily see that. There's no way of seeing these things on the outside. So when you come into Specsavers, you get this hospital-grade technology that allows us to make sure your eyes continue to be healthy.
It sounds a little bit scary, like when it's explained, but I had the OCT 3D eye scan recently, and it was actually really fun, and it was so fast and easy. So if you are somebody that's, a little bit apprehensive about getting these sorts of things done, definitely go and do it. It's pain-free, it's fast, it's easy, and I honestly enjoyed it. Will it help my husband find things around the house, Ryan? Just real quick before I send you on your way.
Unfortunately, as amazing as it is, it will not help Bryce find things. You'll have to keep pointing them out because you've got new glasses.
Okay, maybe I do need to find a divorce lawyer. Thank you so much, Ryan. We'll catch up with you again soon, and maybe even in a Specsavers. So, Tim, we've learned a lot today, and I think that I love that you've actually been quite honest about it. Like, not everything is for everyone, but there are great benefits to the things that we've spoken about today. Because I think that people see these things on social media and feel like they should be doing that, and because they're not doing that, then they're a failure or whatever. So it's great to hear that not everything is one size fits all. But as somebody that is doing like a lot of work in this space, you've got teenage daughters and stuff, what do you look at within the industry and think that is an absolute load of shit?
I could not agree more. There is lots and lots of shit out there. There is. And I get it. Everyone's trying to sell something all the time. The one thing we know is you should be taking time for yourself in some way. You know what I mean? Like, we're all living busy, full-on lives. Living in that state all the time is just not good for you. Like, we're all living in this sort of semi-stressed state. Over time, I'm the exact same.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I get you.
I'm definitely not like this picture of health. There'll be weeks.
You do look a picture of health.
I definitely don't feel it.
I'm like sitting there being like, maybe I should start ice bathing. Your skin glows.
I'm definitely not anti-work. I'm not anti-stress. I'm not anti any of that. There's some weeks that I'll work 100 hours, and that's fine when your kids they don't want to hang out with me anymore. So that's sort of. But one thing I definitely I think you've got to find something and build it into your day, or build it into your week, or build it into your month that allows you to sort of get away from things for a little bit. For some people it might be just getting outside in the sun. It might be just going for a walk along the beach, whatever it is. But finding ways to like disengage with life just a little bit, because there's so many things that happen in that time. It allows your body to sort of sink into that sort of parasympathetic state where it can actually recover, it can actually repair. And like, a lot of people look at that and they think, actually, that's like, if I'll sleep when I'm dead, that sort of mindset, I'm all go.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're driven and you want to do well, actually stepping back, taking time, and that might be in a sauna, or it might be in a float tank, or it might be, as I mentioned, something that's,
basic,
sitting on a cushion at home and just relaxing, without a TV or a phone in front of you. That there will help you perform better in the things that you want to do, genuinely. And so, like, it's that whole, like, one step back to take two steps forward. The basic stuff everyone knows, you need to eat well. You just do. Yeah. And that doesn't mean you avoid everything. Everyone's different. Understanding what you need. Sleeping really well, obviously, is super important. Some people can get away with 6 hours sleep. Some people could never get away with that, Right. So figuring out what works for you. Some sort of movement, some sort of movement. Once again, you don't have to be practicing yoga every day or going to the gym every day. In fact, the whole Blue Zone sort of study shows that, like, they actually weren't training physically every day. They just had like an active lifestyle. They walked to work, or they biked to work, or they made their own sort of cakes or whatever. That Blue Zone thing is around how long people live. Like the things that they do to, like, there's these spots around the world that people like live abnormally longer than everyone else. There's a sort of spot in Japan and Utah, and the common threads that they had, it actually wasn't smashing yourself physically. They all had some sort of relaxation practice, whether it be spiritual or some sort of meditative practice.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing I'd say is, like, try and find some way to just disengage a little bit. And it doesn't have to be, 20 minutes of meditation sitting on a cushion. It could be literally just 5 minutes of could you just breathe, like nasal breathing, just real conscious breathing. But yeah, that's my recommendation. Find something that works and make it easy. so that you can actually do it. Because it's not like doing one thing for a week and expecting all your stress to disappear.
Yeah.
It's actually finding a way to build it into your whole lifestyle. You can't brush your teeth every day for 2 weeks and think your teeth are going. You've got to do it morning and night to have good teeth, you know.
Hope my son hears that.
But it's the same with this whole area of like relaxation, recovery, well-being. It's like building small things into your day that you can do for a long period of time. Yeah.
I love that, because I think for too long it's been a badge of honour to be busy and to be like, I'm doing it all. Look at her. She's Superwoman. They're Superman.
Yeah.
Like, it's just unattainable.
Yeah.
Well, Tim, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. We're going to put a link for people to come and visit O Studio in the show notes as well. So go and check it out and try and build that moment into your day. And maybe it could be at O Studio. So Tim Bateman, thank you very much.
No worries at all. I love what you're doing. It's epic.
Thank you so much for listening. Next week, we're going to be talking about a topic that is the most requested episode. Every single time I have asked, what do you want to hear on the podcast? We are going to be talking about perimenopause, because who knew that was a thing? I definitely didn't until I learnt about it on Petra Vegas' podcast.
Rover. Music, radio, podcasts.